Craving an adrenaline rush? Be careful what you wish for. Scattered across our planet lie regions so hazardous, so inhospitable, they've been branded zones of insanity by the few who've dared venture inside. From desolate Antarctic valleys where radiation clouds mimic shapes in the sky, to primordial rainforest pockets still dishing out venom-laced retribution for humanity's intrusion, these pockets of our world remain incalculably lethal. Tempting fate could mean venturing somewhere even search parties fear to tread, uttering their final words as more chilling warnings for the next soul who dares. You've been advised.
We have Cape Town in South Africa. Due to the prevalence of poverty and social unrest in this city, it is suffering from extremely high crime. In fact, it is one of the highest crimes per 100,000 residents in the world regarding assaults, rape, and murder, which is about 50 people each day is murdered, and it's only increasing. There's about 65,000 rapes and other sexual assaults reported each year, and there's a lot of insurance companies down there that don't even insure cars, and that's because they're stolen way too often. You're not able to insure a Volkswagen City Golf at all because this is the most common car hijacked. Okay, now moving on to Detroit, which is America's most dangerous city. And this comes in to the number 9 spot. According to the FBI statistics, the crime rate was 5 times higher than the national average. 3 neighborhoods in Detroit district ranked within the top 25 most dangerous neighborhoods in the US residents. This city is so bad that a lot of residents have boarded up their windows and doors. The population really took a hit in 2010 where 200,000 residents fled. Right now their population is under 700,000. Their population hasn't been this low since 1910, a long time ago. Acapulco, Mexico comes into the number 8 spot. The city used to be one of Mexico's oldest coastal tourist destinations. However, in modern times, tourists in Acapulco have been facing problems with local corrupt police. And they steal money by extortion and also by intimidating people. I mean, they're the ones in power. Police officers would threaten residents with jail time. Other than that, Acapulco is also known as a city with a lot of drug cartel problems. There has been reports of dead bodies everywhere, and if you're at the wrong place at the wrong time, no one can guarantee you will survive. There is dozens of beheaded bodies, victims with their limbs all chopped up, and some mass execution sites has been spotted, as well as victims with their skin all peeled right off. And this is all over the city. So for all of these reasons, this is one of the most dangerous cities in the world. Coming in at number 7, we're talking about Baghdad, Iraq. This is Iraq's largest city with over 7 million people, and it's the 2nd largest city in the Arab world. The level of violence remains rampant due to the random gunfire and roadside bombings. A lot of the city has faced severe infrastructural damage due to the Iraq war. There was bombs going off everywhere. As of 2012, Baghdad was listed as the least hospital places in the world. Local people are being randomly killed or hunted. As many as 130 bodies were found every morning. Damascus, which is the capital and the 2nd largest city in Syria, which is just after Aleppo, % fatality rate. There was a nationwide 3-day quarantine where the whole city was shut down. There is so much crime there from 1991 to 2001. 50,000 people were killed in the Civil War. The city's environment is so dangerous to live in that the expectancy is ranked on the bottom of the World Health Organization list. And this is a list that was conducted in 2013. The life expectancy, if you guys live in this city, is 46 years old. Up next, we have Mogadishu, Somalia, and this comes in at number This is Somalia's capital, and is currently a war zone, which is extremely dangerous. There is a conflict between the government and the warlords, which is the Al-Qaeda. We all know them, the famous terrorist group. The group that was ran by Osama bin Laden, the people behind the 9/11 attack. The current leader right now of that Al-Qaeda group is 63-year-old Ayman al-Zawahiri. Right now there's a $25 million reward for his capture. There are travel warnings for people who visit the city. If you travel to Mogadishu, you are told to not wander the streets alone for any reasons at all. There are bombings, terrorist attacks, kidnappings, and rapes. This is a city that you guys want to stay far away from. Moving on to Ciudad Juarez, which is located in Mexico, and this comes in at number. This is the nation's most violent city. And this is a place where violence occurs every single day. Police are often employed or paid off by drug gangs, which results in hundreds, if not thousands of crimes going unsolved each and every year. Since the early 1990s, there has been approximately 370 femicides and at least 400 missing women. Femicide is a sexual gender hate crime, in which in this case is defined by killing women. In 2010, there was over 3,000 murders reported, which is an average of 8 murders every single day. There is a constant rivalry between drug cartels, smugglers, kidnappers, and other bad criminals. All over the city has dismembered bodies and common graves that were stuffed with corpses. Alright, next we have Kabul, Afghanistan, and this comes in at number 2. Kabul is the capital of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, as well as the largest city. It's the 5th fastest growing city in the world, but it comes at a price. The current Afghanistan government has little or no control over the country. This has become a war zone. Threats are unpredictable. There has been many suicide bombings, mass shootings, and kidnappings. The standard policy there is to not report kidnappings of foreigners. The Taliban is an Islamic fundamentalist political movement group in Afghanistan. They were behind the attack that happened on 9/11. This is a very scary group, but ISIS has also taken over parts in Afghanistan. Okay, so finally, we have all made it here into the number 1 spot. San Pedro Sula, Honduras. This city has been ranked as the most violent city for several years in a row, and it's for a reason. It has the highest homicide rates in the world. There are 7,172 murders, and this is in Honduras in 2012. Firearms trafficking has been a really big problem. Honduras is one of the poorest countries in Latin America. This is mainly because of the Hurricane Mitch. That was a Category 5 hurricane that hit the city back in 1998, and still it hasn't fully recovered. The city has also been known for cocaine trafficking as well. So this is the place that you're not going to tick off your list of wanting to go visit and see place.
At number 10, we have Salem, Massachusetts, USA, a town revered by the occult and has a dark enough history to make any horror fan squeal with glee. Salem, Massachusetts was the home of the 1692 Salem witch trials. This is where a massive witch hunt led to the hanging of 19 people who were falsely accused of using witchcraft. There are several spots around the town that give off an extremely creepy vibe and have reported hauntings, but the most notorious place is the former home of Sheriff George Corwin. He was the man responsible for spearheading the hunting and capturing of these witches. Not only that, but the people that were captured, he would take them into his basement and then he would torture these people until they confessed to their crimes. Now his ghost and the ghosts of several other people who were tortured by him haunt the Joshua Ward House, which is the building that sits on the land that the sheriff's house used to be on. At number 9, we have the Fairmont Hotel in Banff, Canada. If you have never been to Banff, it is one of the most beautiful places in the whole world. There's amazing skiing in the winter, and in the summer it turns into a lush green wonderland. If you were a ghost, this would be a paradise to haunt. The Fairmont sits on top of a mountain that looks so regal it could double as the Grand Budapest Hotel. It was built in 1888 and it was the center point to increase tourism in the area, and it worked. But like any old building, this place has adopted some guests that refuse to check out. There are 2 ghosts that are responsible for the majority of the ghost sightings, one being that of an old bellhop. He was the employee of the hotel back in the 70s, and after he kicked the bucket, he decided that retirement wasn't for him. His ghost has been seen throughout the hotel, helping people to this day. Very few people get to do what they love. Why let a little thing like death stop you from sticking to your passion? Another ghost is that of the bride dressed all in white. The story goes that she tripped down a staircase on the day of her wedding and met a grim ending. That is a huge bummer. You're about to make it to the altar and you lose your footing. Oh, that sucks. At number 8, we have the Chinoi Church in Beijing, China. An old mysterious building that sits in Beijing, China. There are several elements to this building that make it an intriguing place for anyone interested in the supernatural. First, no one knows who built the building or who commissioned the building to be built, almost as if an outside force created the building, like the devil came to town and was like, yeah, let's build a church. Also, on the front door of the building there is a note that makes it very clear that there are no ghosts inside, which is super sus. Like where I live, there's no note about ghosts because it's just a given. We know there's no ghosts. This place uses the used car salesman approach to convincing people. Yeah, that rickety noise in the back? Oh, that's just something the car makes. It's an added feature. The residence is haunted by the ghost of a young woman who killed herself by hanging during the Communist War in China. Some say she did this because her husband was killed at war, and others say she was trying to avoid capture. At number 7 we have the Shanghai Tunnels in Portland, USA. A Shanghai tunnel sounds like a place where you go to bet on horse racing and eat the best fried rice you've ever had in your life. But it actually used to be the epicenter for human trafficking in the United States. Located in Portland, Oregon, the tunnels are now run down and unused. Back in the 19th century, people walking through these tunnels would often be kidnapped and then sold overseas into slave labor. Some bars above these tunnels had trap doors in them, which they would use to take drunk people, slip them down into the tunnels where they would never be seen again. A lot of people died in these tunnels before they were sold off into slavery. Now it's said that their angry ghosts walk the halls. Screaming, banging, and even weeping can be heard when you pass through these tunnels. At number 6 we have La Château de Brissac, France. We are heading all over the world with this list, and now we're heading to a place that has a long, rich history, France. It makes sense to waltz right into a castle. Besides being one of the most glorious buildings in all of France, an exciting reason to visit this place is the spectral tourist attraction. Back during the reign of King Charles VII, he was married to a beautiful woman who he unfortunately found out was cheating on him. He wasn't too happy with this, so he divorced her, and that was that. I'm just kidding. It was the 1400s. He also had her killed for insulting his honor. That's how they did things back then. When her life ended, she was wearing a green dress. Now it's said you can see the ghost of a woman in a green dress walking the halls, moaning for her lost love. At number 5 we have Morgan House, Kalimpong, India. The estate formerly owned by the Morgans has a rather dark past. The house was lived in by Baron George Morgan and his wife back in the 1930s. Apparently Mr. Morgan would spend a lot of his free time torturing his wife. With them being in India and his wife having nowhere to go, she eventually fell into a depression. Not long after that she died. The two never had any kids, and after Mr. Morgan died, the Indian government took control of the property. It has now been spruced up into a nice hotel, but the terrors of this building's past haven't been washed away. Mrs. Morgan is free from her husband and has no interest in leaving her home. Many patrons of the hotel say they have heard her high heels walking along the wooden floors. At number 4 we have Casa Loma, Toronto, Canada. The most famously haunted place in all of Toronto. It's literally a massive castle that is a 10-minute drive from the world famous CN Tower. It's strange having a massive stone castle built in the early 20th century so close to the downtown core, but that's probably why it's so haunted. All the ghosts want to gather there because it feels like home. One of the most haunted areas of the castle are the secret underground tunnels which connect different sections of the property. There have been reports of a ghostly miner who might have died digging the tunnels, and a lady in a white dress. Also, the castle's former owner, Lady Mary Pellet, has been seen all throughout the building. Some people say they've tried to take a picture of her when she's walking through, and she will use her ghostly powers to turn off your camera. Sounds like she's not very photogenic. If you want to give yourself an extra fright, you should come check out the castle in October when they turn the whole thing into a massive haunted house. I've been, it's a great time. At number 3 we have the Hill of Crosses in Lithuania. The look of this place will make you say, oh yeah, there are for sure some ghosts in here. This hill has been the site of rebellion, respect, and remembering the dead for the past 500 years. People have come here to place crosses as a way to pay good fortune to those who died fighting for the freedom of Lithuania. This practice has made it a safe haven for spirits to walk through, and there have been reports of seances performed there trying to contact these dead heroes. There are currently over 100,000 crosses piled up on this hill. Back in the Soviet reign, they tried to destroy this holy landmark 3 3 times. 3 times. But the Lithuanian people stood strong and came back to rebuild it every time. That's a pretty awesome story of solidarity. I know why ghosts want to hang out here. They're like, I know my home will be safe forever. At number 2, we have Cemetery Number 1 in New Orleans, USA. This place has been nicknamed the Haunted City because it is literally filled with so many graves that you could fill a small theater. There are over 700 graves at this site. You pack that many people into one spot and you are guaranteed some strange spirits walking around. On Halloween, it must be like a massive party in there. It would be a giant ghost rave with the coolest people from the last 200 years. The grave that gets the most attention is that of former voodoo priestess Marie Laveau. It said she had the power to influence spirits, and now even in death her ghost can gain strength from the graveyard and get the phantoms to do her bidding. I mean, that's a good skill to have after you're dead. You're like, oh, you guys, you work for me. That's how this is gonna work. And for the number 1 spot, we have the Rose Hall in Montego Bay, Jamaica. A beautiful mansion that used to be the home of the Palmers back in the 19th century. The two were a loving couple, or that's what the public thought. Mr. Palmer died one day of suspicious causes, but foul play was inconclusive. Annie Palmer took control of the property, and people weren't too suspicious until her 2 following husbands and her parents died, all without warning. Now things are getting a little suspicious. The urban legend of Annie Palmer is that she was a witch and she would use dark magic to kill her victims. It's said that her evil spirit still inhabits the Rose Hall. A witch ghost sounds pretty serious, especially one that has killed people. That's not something you want to disturb for your own entertainment, right? Well, you totally can. You can take tours of the building which highlight all the legends surrounding the witch of the Rose Hall. And if you really want to bring some bad mojo into your life, you can take part in a seance to communicate with the spirit of Annie Palmer. I think the ghost of a murderous witch isn't something I would want to hang out with.
Starting off this countdown, we have the Stairway to Heaven. The Stairway to Heaven, or the Haiku Stairs, is a very steep hiking trail that was closed in 1987. It was closed because of lack of maintenance of the trail and it was deemed unsafe. It's considered one of Hawaii's most dangerous trails, but that didn't stop 18-year-old Dalen Pua from hiking out there. On February 27, 2015, Dalen went out for a hike. He had previously told his grandmother, who he was visiting, that he wanted to do so, but she warned him against it. Also, you can get charged if you do trespass. But that didn't deter Dalen. On that day, he told his grandma he was going out for a hike, but she didn't think he would dare to go there. She was wrong. The last time anyone saw him was around 11 a.m. when he sent a photo to his family of him at that location. He never returned home. Of course, there are a number of theories as to what happened to him. Maybe he fell while on the hike, since the area is dangerous. But then again, his body or bones were never found. Another theory is that he was kidnapped or killed by someone. In the photo he sent to his family, it said you can see a man lurking in the foliage. Was this his killer? Sadly, we might never solve this case. Coming in at number 9, we have Snake Island. With a name like that, who would even want to visit it? And as you probably guessed, it is covered in snakes. This island is apparently home to around 4,000 snakes, most of them being golden lancehead vipers, aka one of the deadliest serpents in the world. It's said that this type of viper can grow up to 18 inches long, and it's so poisonous that one bite can kill you within an hour. As a result, the Brazilian government has banned anyone from ever going there. If you do, well, chances are you won't make it back alive. Legend goes that a fisherman arrived at the island in search of bananas, but was found days later in his boat, dead in a pool of his own blood. Then from 1909 to the 1920s, a family lived on the island to run the lighthouse. But according to another legend, the entire family was found dead after a group of snakes came into their home and attacked them. So like I said before, you don't ever want to go to this island. Moving on to number 8, we have Area 51. Of course this had to be on the list. Area 51 is a top secret government facility that is illegal for the public to visit. Anyone that does try to trespass can be charged, arrested, or even shot to death. This is what happened to a man in 2019. On January 28th, the man attempted to get into Area 51. He was then chased down by some cars for 8 miles. When he got out of his car, he was shot dead. Another case would be the 2 YouTubers that were arrested in September of 2019 after they tried to sneak into Area 51 and were caught recording the premise. I know we all want to know what really goes on in there, like if they got aliens or whatnot, but curiosity killed the cat. Just saying. In our 7th spot, we have the Devil's Hole. With a name like that, maybe it's best you don't visit it. So the Devil's Hole is located in a national wildlife refuge in Nevada. You can tour the area, but access to the Devil's Hole itself is off limits. They have a sign and a fence guarding the area, and the sign reads as so: "Due to the scientific importance of this area and its fragile nature, unauthorized entry is prohibited." Yes, they want to protect the ecosystem, but also it is so dangerous to enter there. So Devil's Hole is like a little hole of water. When you dive in, it's filled with complex underwater caverns. Back in 1965, one night a group of 4 friends decided to hop the fence and explore the Devil's Hole. It was Paul, David, Bill, and Jack. Jack was on the lookout while the 3 dove in, but Paul never resurfaced. As a result, David and Bill both went back under to look for him, but then David never resurfaced. To this day, their bodies have never been found. Moving on to number 6, we have Ramree Island. Tourists are banned from ever visiting this island, because chances are your vacation will take a deadly turn if you decide to go there. This island is home to thousands of saltwater crocodiles, and they weigh around 2,000 pounds. Even the small ones pose a threat to humans. They have the capability of killing someone twice their size. On top of that, they are highly aggressive and will attack anyone that enters their habitat. In fact, the most number of fatalities in a crocodile attack took place at Ramree Island. In 1945, British soldiers drove the Japanese fighters off the main area of the island, forcing them to flee into the marshy area surrounding the island. One problem: those marshes were filled with hungry crocodiles. As a result, 500 soldiers were killed by these crocodiles. So yeah, maybe don't go to this island unless you want to be crocodile dinner. And of course, there's a number of stories of tourists going to this island and then being attacked and killed by these beasts. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with Bouvet Island. Now here's the thing with Bouvet Island. You can visit it, but it would be a death wish if you did. Bouvet Island is extremely isolated and it's almost completely covered by a glacier. Its nearest inhabited land is 1,600 miles away. One way to get there is by boat, but it would take very long and you would be facing extreme weather conditions while doing so. As a result, most expeditions are done by helicopter. Even then, if the weather suddenly changes, you're basically screwed because the island is so remote and far away from other pieces of land. But in 1964, a lifeboat was found abandoned at this island. How did it get there? How could this little boat survive crossing the Southern Ocean? It's a mystery that still baffles many. But also, where did the passengers of the boat go, if they had any? We got no clue, just a couple of theories. And at number 4, we have Vortex Spring. Vortex Spring is known for having pretty complex diving caves, but only those that have a diving certificate or are accompanied by an experienced diver can go there by themselves. In the 1980s, 13 people died in the vortex. There's one area in the underwater caves that are considered so deadly that it's blocked off, and people are prohibited from entering there. It's got this creepy warning sign with the Grim Reaper, and it's often locked with a gate. It's just far too easy for people to get lost and drown in there. But that didn't stop Ben McDaniel. On August 18, 2010, Ben was seen entering the water near the caves and was never seen again. This case is quite strange, like there's a lot of pieces to it. Some say he faked his death because he owed the IRS a lot of money, and also he had a failed marriage, so maybe this was his way of starting over. Or Ben really did get lost in the caves and drowned, but his gear or body have never been found. In our 3rd spot, we have the Bolton Strid. The Strid near Bolton Abbey is said to be the most dangerous stretch of water in the world. Just by looking at it, you wouldn't even think it's dangerous. I mean, the current isn't even that fast. But below the water surface are strong undercurrents that will toss you back and forth against the sharp, jagged rocks until you die. It's also fairly deep and it could just suck you down until you drown. In fact, it has a 100% fatality rate. Everyone that has gone or fallen in have never made it out alive. Their bodies also have never been found. There are a number of stories of people trying to leap across the river only to slip and fall in. In one case, there was a newlywed couple visiting the Strid. However, upon trying to cross the Strid, the bride fell in, and the groom fell in also trying to save her. As a result, there are a number of warning signs all around the area trying to warn people of the Strid's dangers. But of course, a lot of people ignore the signs since the strait is so deceiving and looks pretty safe. In our second spot, we have North Sentinel Island. The reason why you can't visit this island is because it is home to a tribe that will kill anyone who dares to intrude on their land. They live their own life completely isolated from the rest of the world. In fact, they still live a hunter-gatherer lifestyle. But a man named John Allen believed that with the power of God, he would be able to convert them to Christianity and help them. He believed that this island was Satan's last stronghold on Earth. So in November of 2018, he headed out to the island. Now, the people that took him there knew of the dangers and really didn't want to, but he was so insistent that they finally gave in. In fact, they were later arrested for doing so. John's first attempt at making contact with them didn't go as planned. As soon as he stepped foot on the island, several men came charging at him, firing arrows. So he fled. But on November 16th, he tried again. He got a fisherman to drop him off alone, and that was the last time anyone had ever seen him. When people went back there for him, they saw the tribe members dragging his dead body with a rope. And in our number one spot, we have the secret cave. It was the evening of August 17th, 2005, and 5 friends were having dinner together. They were Scott McDonald, J. Blake Donner, Jennifer Lynn Galbraith, Ariel Singer, and Stephen Hunley. While eating, the group got to talking about this secret cave, which was a legend where they were from. It's all about this cool secret cave slash hangout spot. Rumor has it that's where human sacrifices were made, etc. But of course, no one thought it was a real cave. That's when Jennifer said that it was real and that she had been there before. The friends, not really believing her, asked her to bring them there. And so they did. So basically, up in the mountains by Brigham Young University, there was this small opening to a cave. The entrance was in the shape of a Y. But in order to get to the secret hangout spot, Jennifer told them they would have to dive down one area through this underwater tunnel to the other side, where there was an air pocket. The tunnel was 15 feet, and the gap they would have to swim through was 20 inches wide. So it was just enough for people to squeeze through. On top of that, someone had put a rope in the water so you could just pull yourself underwater with. So that's what the 4 of the friends did. Stephen Hunley decided to stay back. He waited for the group for about an hour, then he decided to call for help. And when police arrived, they were horrified at what they saw. So it seems like the group of friends successfully managed to get to the other side, but they couldn't make it back. The police ended up pumping out the water so that they could enter. And that's when they found all 4 of the friends' bodies stacked up against each other. It seems as if the person leading, who was Jennifer, got stuck on the way out and then she drowned. It would then be impossible to swim over her. So then the second person that went swimming was stopped at Jen's body, and they couldn't get back out because then the third person was coming in. So everyone was just blocked in this small tunnel. Slowly but surely, all of them drowned in this small dark cave. For safety reasons, this cave is no longer accessible.
Start off with our number 10, which is the Destitute Cemetery. In Guatemala City, they have run out of room for their dead, and if you can't bury in the ground anymore, you start building up. The graves at the La Verbena Cemetery is a real city of the dead, where graves have been stacked on top of each other over the years to save space. In the alleyways and roads, people have set up all kinds of shops and stalls to sell their wares to the families of the dead, who hold parties in front of their graves and pay local bands to play music. The creepiest part of it all is that the families have to pay rent after 6 years of $24 a year, and if they don't, people smash open the graves and dispose of the bodies to make room for more dead people. Wow. So I guess that answers the question, how do you make a graveyard creepier? You stack 10 of them on top of each other and then smash open people's graves randomly. Pretty scary stuff, but we're only just getting started. But let's talk about our number 8 now, which is Jacob's Well. Jacob's Well in Texas is just 12 feet in diameter and looks like a harmless pond. But if you swim in it, you're swimming above 120 feet of water. That's about the height of an 11-story building. This seemingly bottomless dark hole has attracted many divers over the years who have been drawn to the challenge of finding out where the eerie hole actually goes. Local legend claimed that one part of the hole actually required a diver to remove their oxygen tank to fit through a narrow gap, where the current then pulled them away from the exit. A total of 8 divers have actually died trying to explore Jacob's Well, and they probably won't be the last. So we're at number 7 now, and it's the Overton Bridge. Located in Scotland, the Overton Bridge is over 120 years old, above a waterfall, and has been the location of many suicides. But not human suicides. Not a single person has died there, but since the 1950s, hundreds and hundreds of dogs have reportedly leapt off the bridge to their deaths. It's a totally unexplained phenomenon, with the only link between all the dogs being that they jumped in clear weather and were all breeds with long snouts. Today the total sits at 600 dogs, and they've even put a sign there that says dangerous bridge, keep your dogs on a lead. Something very creepy is going on there, guys. Let me know what your theories are, but in the meantime, let's move on to our number 6, which is the Chapel of Bones. Sometimes old churches can be creepy, but this one takes the biscuit. Capella dos Ossos, otherwise known as the Chapel of Bones, is a 16th century chapel whose inside is completely covered in human bones. Specifically, they're the bones of over 5,000 monks. Apparently in the 16th century, the Portuguese town had 43 cemeteries that took up too much space. So, in order to create space, they dug up the remains of the 5,000 monks and carefully covered the walls of the chapel with them. The aim was to create a religious space that would be a constant reminder to everyone who walked in there of death, and hopefully steer them away from materialism. So guys, don't get too obsessed with your next iPhone or iPad, otherwise your parents might take you on a nasty little trip down to the Chapel of Bones. Ugh. Anyway, it's time for number 5, and it's the Hoia Baciu forest. Now this forest in Romania is referred to by locals as the Bermuda Triangle of the country because of the huge amount of paranormal activities that have been reported there over the years. Now these range from ghosts to UFOs and visitors expressing a deep feeling of anxiety when they walk among the trees, as well as the feeling of being watched. The forest really gained attention though in the 1960s when biologist Alexandru Sift took a number of pictures that showed strange, disc-shaped objects hovering above the trees. The terrifying tales all seem to centre around one point in the forest, a circle totally devoid of trees, which theorists believe is the opening to another dimension. Now you guys may or may not believe in those theories, but one thing is for sure, I would not want to go for an evening stroll there. Now you guys let me know your thoughts on that as we move on to our number 4, which is the ghost town of Pripyat. On April 26, 1986, the Chernobyl nuclear reactor in Ukraine began an accidental meltdown that would contaminate 30 kilometers of land in all directions with dangerous radiation. The government evacuated over 350,000 people, and some places like Pripyat were deemed too unsafe for anyone to return. The result is a creepy ghost town that is frozen in time. It has been left exactly how it was over 30 years ago. Even the amusement park that was opened the day before the accident is just desolate. Now some estimates say that humans won't be able to live there safely for another 600 years, but with a place that looks that creepy, I'm not sure anyone wants to. Alright, we're at number 3 now guys, and I want to show you the hanging coffins. Members of the Igorot tribe in the Philippines have been burying their dead in coffins attached to the side of cliffs for over 2,000 years. A person is expected to carve their own coffin when they die. Their families then tie them with the other coffins on the cliff. Their religious belief is that they will be closer to their ancestors this way and have an easier passage to heaven. But there's also a more practical reason to all this, as it stops animals and grave robbers from defiling the graves. It's a very creepy place, and apparently as you're building up the courage to look up at the coffins, there's massive holes in some of them with the skeletons poking their heads out. We're at number 2, and it's the Island of Dolls. In the 1950s, a Mexican man named Julian Santana Barrera retreated to a wooded area on the outskirts of Mexico City to live out his life as a recluse. It was there that he discovered the corpse of a young girl and a toy doll floating in a canal next to her. He hung up the doll on a tree as a mark of respect to the deceased girl, but after hearing screams at night, he became convinced that the girl had possessed the doll. Julian began to hang up more and more dolls from the trees in order to appease the girl's spirit. He died in 2001, but tourists from all over the world have visited the site to continue the tradition of placing dolls to create one of the creepiest sites in the world. It's made even more creepy when I tell you that apparently some of the visitors say they can actually hear the dolls whispering to them. Alright, so we've looked at suicide forests, we've been creeped out by ghost towns, we've even seen thousands of dolls on an island, but now it's time for our number 1, and it's the catacombs of Paris. Paris is known as a city of love, life and food, but beneath its cobblestone streets lies a creepy underground tunnel network that many people simply aren't aware of. The catacombs are a massive graveyard with tunnels that snake and wind for over But we here at Most Amazing Top 10 think it's definitely one of the scariest places in the world.
Number 10. The Bisman Building. The Bisman Building was built in 1886, and fun fact, the film Shawshank Redemption used this place as a filming location. If you have seen the film, the building is used as the entrance to the Brewer Hotel, where Brooks and Red stayed after they were paroled from Shawshank. The real building, though, is haunted. While here many people experience a feeling of dread and sadness, particularly on the 3rd floor. Many people also report an overwhelming sensation of darkness when on this floor, so if I were you, I would just stay away from the 3rd floor in general. Disembodied footsteps, voices, being poked and pushed, black shadows, and dark figures caught in images seems to be something that happens a lot. Spirits of a young girl Ruthie, her aunt, and the spirit of a retired worker who died in an accident before leaving the building are 3 identified spirits that stay here. In past investigations here, investigators have received audible responses to their questions. Yep, the ghosts spoke to them. One piece of audio evidence was when an investigator asked if they could speak to Ruthie, and a voice was caught saying, "Is Ruthie here?" In addition to Ruthie, people have witnessed the spirit of a woman throughout the upper floors, people in Victorian clothing, and the sounds of people working. Number 9. Staley Road. Sometime in the early 1800s, pioneer John Wrench used the services of 3 Staley brothers to build a flour mill. The finished structure was to become the first double-wheeled mill in Ohio. The business flourished, and after several years, John had made enough money to retire and ended up selling his mill to Elias Staley. The mill was then passed down to his brother Andrew and continued to produce flour until 1905. Today, the mill is still standing, and on Staley Road, named for the brothers, winds its way past and through the woods. It has become something of a rite of passage for local teens to drive this road at night to show how brave they are. It's been said that Old Man Staley went on a rampage, ending the lives of many, and is now haunting the road. Motorists say that they often experience unexplained car trouble, and some have even seen Staley's ghost standing next to or even lying in the road. Number 8. The Golden Lamb. As the oldest hotel in Ohio, the Golden Lamb has seen more than its share of famous guests, including Charles Dickens, Mark Twain, Daniel Webster, and 12 American presidents. Yeah, 12. It's fantastic, but there's also been death and tragedy in the hotel. Guests have cited a girl who may be Sarah Stubbs, the niece of the hotel manager in the 1800s, or possibly Eliza Clay, a girl who died of a high fever at the hotel in 1825. The ghost of Charles R. Sherman, an Ohio Supreme Court justice who died at the inn in 1929, is said to appear in the hallways as a gray, gaunt man and conjures the smell of cigar smoke. Charles's death left his wife and 11 children, including Civil War General William T. Sherman, penniless. As a result, most of his children were put up for adoption, and some say the guilt of his family's demise keeps his spirit at the inn. Number 7. Moonville Tunnel. Located deep in the woods, the tunnel is framed by a faded stone archway covered in moss. The tunnel itself is long and extremely dark. It's actually an out-of-work stretch of railroad track that leads to an old coal mining town. If you're brave enough to venture through it, you might see the ghost of Frank Lawhead, an unlucky train conductor who met his end in a head-on collision with another train. Visitors in the area have taken photos with cameras or phones, only to look back at them later and notice the pale figure of a man they didn't see before, or phantom train lights blazing at the end of the tunnel. It's also said if you listen carefully, inhale deeply, and blink intermittently, you may encounter spirits from another time. The piercing whistle of a train rounding a curve, the smell of lavender wafting from a woman in an old-fashioned dress, or even the glow of gaslit lantern illuminating the face of the weathered brakeman. So that's fun. Number 6. The Buxton Inn. The Buxton Inn was built by Orrin Granger in 1812 as an inn and tavern, and it also served as Granville's first post office and as a stagecoach stop. I'm just gonna say it, this place is haunted. The first ghost spotted in the Buxton Inn was the first owner, Orrin. Other ghosts include the Lady in Blue, rumored to be the former innkeeper Ethel Bonnie Bonnell, Major Buxton, whom the inn was named, and even a phantom cat seen slinking along the halls. There's been strange activity like footsteps and doors opening on their own reported in the inn's basement, where stagecoach drivers would often stay during their stopovers in the past. However, the ghosts just don't stay in the basement. Oh no. Rooms 7 and 9 9 are said to be the strongest places for activity, with apparitions appearing. One guest even reported a ghost cat showing up to cuddle and purr in the middle of the night, which, like, aw, that's so cute. Guests have reported strange phenomenon throughout the hotel though, like their names being called out and invisible footsteps. I would not want to sleep there. Number 5. Woods surrounding London. Okay, again, not London, England, but London, Ohio. Deep inside these woods sits an old abandoned barn that is so rotted away it is practically melded back into the trees. It's rumored that ghosts like to spend some time here. If you ask anyone from the area, they'll tell you that these woods are haunted. According to legend, a family of 5 was traveling through the woods in the late 1890s when they were stopped and had their lives ended by a band of thieves. Those brave enough to wander through the woods of London at night have reported hearing gunshots and disembodied screaming. Others have felt a sudden drop in temperature before seeing a strange white mist hanging in the trees. Let me just say, it's a no for me. Number 4. Ridges Asylum. Ridges Asylum originally opened in 1874 and was known as the Athens Asylum for the Insane. It had 2 wings, one for female patients and one for the male patients. The most violent patients were housed at the outermost tip of each wing. By the start of the 1900s, the asylum had become dangerously overcrowded, and rumors of inhumane treatment at the hands of the overworked staff were growing. Despite this, it was not officially closed until 1993. Some parts of the building are still in use, while other areas are completely abandoned. One of the scariest places in the building is the outline of a body where Margaret Shrilling died in 1979. She apparently got lost in the disused part of the hospital in the winter of 1978-79 and was not found for more than a month. When the corpse was eventually removed, it left a stain that could never be washed away, which just makes me gag thinking about it, but imagine the smell, like, ew. Ugh. She is one of the many ghosts who is said to walk the asylum at night. Strange figures have been seen roaming around the old floors. Others have heard disembodied voices, footsteps, and screaming. Most appealing to imagination is the basement. Some claim severely disabled patients were kept on chains in dungeon-like places. Some say they've even heard the chains being pulled. Oh, and there's also a cemetery on the grounds which holds over 1,930 bodies. Of those, 700 women and 959 men lay under the headstones marked with only a number, which is sad. Number 3. Bobby Mackey's. Built in 1850, Bobby Mackey's is said to be the most haunted nightclub in America. When it was first built, the building served as a slaughterhouse and meat packing facility. The standard for most slaughterhouses of its day, the facility featured a well to collect the runoff of animal blood, innards, and other waste. If that image wasn't icky enough, there have also been several deaths in and around the club throughout the years. The place harbors energy so dark that a portal to hell is rumored to swirl somewhere within its basement. There is strange, suffocating heat, a trash can once flew through the air, and the apparition of a man with a handlebar mustache appears in the mirror. I would not want to get anywhere near that place ever. Number 2. Licking County Jail. Originally opened in 1889, the Licking County Jail is now home to only prisoners serving afterlife sentences. It contains stacks of cramped, grimy cells lining its dimly lit halls. Since being put out of commission, the jail has become a notoriously haunted hotspot. While it was operating, a total of 3 sheriffs and 19 inmates died on the premise. If you make your way to Licking County Jail, it's said you should peer between the cell bars as figures of prisoners are said to peer back. Visitors have reported hearing cell doors slamming, being touched, whispering in your ear, whistles, the sound of footsteps, some of those being what seems residual, the jingling of keys, screams, and moaning, as well as seeing strange light anomalies, full shadow figures, and photos with unexpected images in them. That sounds absolutely terrifying, and I would not want to go there. And coming in at number 1 is Sedamsville Rectory. The Sedamsville Rectory is a historical building that once served as the home for priests of Our Lady of Perpetual Help Church. Priests of questionable moral character were rumored to live here, if you know what I mean, including a man who was moved around considerably before retiring from the priesthood, leaving some to believe the church was covering up his tendency of mistreating animals. His fellow priests later confessed to hearing strange sounds sounds coming from his bedroom and feeling uneasy in his presence. As the alleged site of the mistreatment, it's no shock that the place has some wicked demonic energy. Reports detail strange howling cries and deep scratches appearing in the flesh of workers. The current owner of the building, Terry Scott, even claimed that she was pushed by an invisible force. The presence was so evil that a priest was called in to perform an exorcism, but his efforts did little to keep the demonic energy at bay, and whatever monster lurked in there still remains, and I would not want to mess with it.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Alert! Just wanted to say Alert! Alert is a small settlement located on the northern tip of Ellesmere Island in Nunavut, Canada. It is considered one of the northernmost settlements in the world and is also one of the most inhospitable environments on the planet. The area is characterized by extremely low temperatures, harsh winds, and long periods of darkness during the winter months. Despite these challenges, people still live in Alert. The settlement was established in 1950 as a weather station and military outpost during the Cold War. Since then, it has remained an important monitoring station for climate change and military activities in the Arctic region. The population of Alert fluctuates depending on the season, but there are typically around 50 people who live and work there. The residents are mostly military personnel, scientists, and support staff who work at the station. They face numerous challenges such as limited supplies, extreme isolation, and the constant threat of polar bear encounters. Despite these challenges, the people who live in Alert are proud of their unique community and the important work that they do. They have developed a strong sense of camaraderie and resilience that is necessary for survival in such an extreme environment. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Danakil Depression. We are going from one extreme to the other. The Danakil Depression is a part of the Afar Triangle in Ethiopia and is a geological depression that came about as a result of Africa and Asia moving apart. The divergence of 3 tectonic plates caused rifting and volcanic activity. This place is the hottest place on Earth in terms of average year-round temperatures, and it is also one of the lowest places on Earth at 100 meters below sea level. There are active volcanoes in the area, there are salt springs, sulfur springs, and it only gets about 4 to 8 inches of rain every year. What I'm saying is that this place is stunning and has an incredibly rich geological history, but it also fully looks like it could be from another planet. This otherworldly landscape and quite inhospitable environment is the home to the Afar people. Somehow they have overcome the odds and the obstacles and managed to thrive in this extreme environment, and it is said that this was made possible over the centuries by their ability to adapt to need less food and water than other humans. Honestly, it's one of the most remarkable things I've ever heard. The Danakil Depression is a popular destination for adventurous travelers who are seeking an experience that is truly out of this world. Visitors can explore the area on foot or by camel, taking in the breathtaking views of the alien-like landscape. Despite the harsh conditions, the area is also home to a number of fascinating animals and plants that have also adapted to this very unique environment. In our number 8 spot today, we have Kabwe. Located in Zambia, this place has been described as the world's most toxic town. The toxins in this town are due to the previous century of mining and smelting, which led to generations being exposed to unbelievable amounts of toxins and a mass lead poisoning. The plants closed in 1994, but at that point, the damage had already been done. The population of 220,000 people that still live here are still exposed to lead in the dust and soil that is 10 times the US safety limit, but they stay out of necessity. At this point in time, the World Bank is now conducting a $65 million remediation project, and while that is great news, unfortunately, nothing can be done for all of the people who had to deal with this for the last century and a half. In our number 7 spot today, we have Omeokon. This place is located in Russia, and if you've heard of it before, there's a chance it might be because it is known as the coldest inhabited place on Earth. This town has a population of around 500 residents who live in an average temperature of around -40 degrees Celsius, although in the summertime the temperature does get to around 0. The ground is covered in permafrost, which of course makes growing crops an impossibility, so the main source of food is meat and fish. Due to the temperature here, living of course has to look a little different. It's too cold for plumbing pipes, so restrooms are usually outhouses, engines freeze easily, so cars are usually running continuously, and during the shortest days, the residents live in darkness for 21 hours a a day. Getting to this small town can take you quite some time as well. If you're coming from Moscow, I don't know why you would be, if you're coming from Moscow, you'll have to take a flight to one of the closest towns, which are both still over 900 kilometers away. The road from these cities that leads to the town is called the Road of Bones, which is extremely ominous sounding and probably a road that should not be traveled alone, just in case. In our number 6 spot today, we have Salar de Uyuni. Salar de Uyuni is the world's largest salt flat, located in the southwest of Bolivia, near the crest of the Andes. The area spans over 10,000 square kilometers and is characterized by a stunning, otherworldly landscape. This peculiar place was formed by the evaporation of a prehistoric lake, leaving behind a thick layer of salt crust that stretches as far as the eye can see. During the rainy season, the salt flat becomes a giant mirror, reflecting the sky and clouds in a breathtaking spectacle. It is truly unbelievable. It looks completely fake and is somehow very real. The unique terrain and climate of the area has also given rise to many unusual natural formations. The flat is dotted with small islands of rock and gigantic cacti, which serves as a haven for a variety of animal species. Yeah, I said giant cacti. While this place is mostly devoid of life, plant or animal, that is save for these cacti that can grow to be 12 meters or 39 feet tall. The area is also home to many active geysers and hot springs, as well as colorful lakes that are filled with flamingos during certain times of year. In fact, in November, this place becomes a feeding ground for 3 South American species of flamingo feeding on local brine shrimps. These are the Chilean, Andean, and rare James flamingos. Aside from its natural wonders, this place is also rich in cultural history. This area has been inhabited by the indigenous Aymara people for thousands of years, and they have maintained their traditional way of life and culture to this day. In our number 5 spot today, we have Itorkotomi. This town is located in one of the most remote areas of Greenland and actually requires a helicopter ride from the nearest airport in order to actually get to the town. It was founded quite recently, actually, in 1925 by a Danish polar explorer and around 80 Inuit settlers, and it is about as far as you can get from any other inhabited area in Greenland. Despite this recent settling based on ruins and other archaeological remains, it became clear that this area was once inhabited sometime in our history by Inuit populations of the past. There's around 450 residents, and the town is known for its wildlife that includes polar bears, musk oxen, and seals. This place can be a popular tourist destination because of the stunning northern lights, as well as other natural wonders. Cruise ships also love to stop here, but that can be a little tricky considering 9 months out of the year, sea ice will block any ship from docking. In our number 4 spot today, we have La Rinconada. This town is located near the Peruvian Andes, very close to a gold mine. It is actually the highest permanent settlement in the world at 5,100 meters above sea level. Between 2001 and 2009, the population of this town increased greatly because the price of gold rose 235% during that time. Because of the elevation, the town has an alpine tundra climate and an average temperature of around 1 degree Celsius. The city has no running water or sewage, and the population of people who live here are working themselves to the bone in extremely dangerous mercury-filled mines. They're also working under some pretty horrible conditions where they work 25 days of the month for no pay, and then 5 days of the month they can work for themselves, and they are allowed to take as much ore as they can carry on their shoulders. There's no guarantee that the ore will have any gold in it, however. And this terrible system is why many of the town's residents live in poverty. The town is a 6-hour bus ride from the nearest city on unpaved roads, and there isn't really a regular bus schedule, which makes it a fairly difficult place to get to. In our number 3 spot today, we have Lake Nyos. Lake Nyos is located in Cameroon, and it is different from any regular old lake because of the volcanic crater that it sits in. The magma floor releases carbon dioxide into both the water and the surrounding air, making it a less than ideal place to live and breathe. Usually the CO2 just dissipates into the air, mostly harmlessly, but in 1986 there was a limnic eruption that caused catastrophe. A limnic eruption is very rare, but it's what happens when dissolved carbon dioxide suddenly erupts from lake waters, which then goes on to form a gas cloud. The resulting gas cloud is extremely dangerous. It is capable of displacing the oxygen in the area, which of course is lethal to any living thing in the area, which is exactly what happened in 1986. This limnic eruption caused a noxious cloud of more than 1 million tons of CO2. This ended up taking the lives of the 1,700 people in the area, as well as the 3,000 than 500 livestock, which made it the first known large-scale asphyxiation caused by a natural event. Despite the threat of another eruption, as well as the lake's weakening walls that could result in a massive flood, people have resettled the area around the lake. I'm not gonna lie, I wouldn't risk it, which makes me wonder why these people chose here. I'm sure there's gotta be a reason. In our number 2 spot today, we have La Oroya. Located in Peru, this town has a population of 30,000 people, despite the metal smelter contamination that has been seen since 1922. The smelter closed in 2009 after the company that ran it declared bankruptcy, but here's how that happened in the first place. The American-owned company ran out of money because they had to fund the environmental cleanup and the anti-pollution measures. Seems like maybe they should have chosen a different path. Seems like it didn't pay off to pollute someone else's air. I guess that they forgot that there's consequences for actions. It still remains as one of the most polluted areas in the entire world, and the toxic metals have gone on to infect the water, the soil, and the air. While it is completely unsafe to live there, people still do, and sadly, they suffer the extreme adverse effects of it. In our number 1 spot today, we have Zabul. The city is located in Iran, and it is an absolute hotspot for dust storms. The summer season is where the worst of it is seen, with what is known as the quote 120-day winds. This is when dust and other matter absolutely bombards the city, which is due to the disappearance of the wetlands, as well as the extremely high temperatures seen in the region. These dust storms aren't just inconvenient, they're actually very dangerous for those who live in the area. So much so that every year officials hand out thousands of air pollution masks to help prevent the damage that these storms can cause to the lungs. In 2016, the city was named as the most polluted city in the world by the World Health Organization, and a study in 2017 even found that the damage from breathing this air for 30 minutes outweighs the benefit of 30 minutes of cycling, meaning it is exceptionally detrimental.
Create a video using exactly this script. Want to see more videos like this one? Check out this video next. It's about megalodon attacks that will never make you want to swim in water again. Click the video now to find out more. See you in the next video.